Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. In today's edition, I want to talk about Dauphiné that's starting on Sunday, the 8th of June. Race is Sunday through the 15th. We're talking about 8 stages at Dauphiné. The first 3 stages look like sprinter stages. The fourth looks like the individual time trial, and then we get into a hilly stage, and then we finish up with 3 mountain stages, short and explosive mountain stages at Dauphiné. So before I start getting into that, I want to remind you guys that the Cascade Classic starts June 14th. We'd love it if we can help with some donations. If the viewers out there sitting on the Chesterfield can help with some of the donations, because we have a ton of races going on. We're going to finish off the day on June 14th with the pro men's and pro women's field, but we're going to highlight the kids races early in the afternoon because, of course, they are Oregon State Championship events there for OBRA. So all the kids are entry fee is free. And, of course, if you're traveling with 3 or more kids, then we give you guys a stipend to come over here to Bend, Oregon. And possibly if you get in touch with Molly here very, very soon, she might be able to find housing if you got some junior kids. And if you're looking at the pro riders coming over, Molly can help you guys with housing too if you get in touch with her very, very soon. If you can help out with donations, again, that would be a big help. If you can help out with volunteer work, that'd be amazing. If you just want to come and watch the race, fantastic. And of course, if you want to come and race, that'd be even better because we'd love to see a bunch of juniors start the afternoon races here on June 14th. Now, today, when we get into the Dauphiné, what's going to highlight is, of course, we have 4 first-page riders coming. Matthew van der Poel has announced after crashing and breaking his wrist that it's healed enough that he can start Dauphiné to keep his preparation going for the 25 Tour de France. And then the next 3 riders on the first page, Tadej Pogačar is showing up here. The UAE Team Emirates rider, of course, had a fantastic spring season. It was magnificent, where he finished it off with Liège-Bastogne-Liège victory. That was just preceded Flèche-Wallonne. He's had a magnificent season, especially when you throw in Tour of Flanders, where he beat Matthew van der Poel. Matthew van der Poel, of course, won Paris-Roubaix, and he won Milan-San Remo. So winning in Flanders against Matthew van der Poel for Tadej Pogačar was an epic victory for UAE Team Emirates rider. So he has coming into here at Dauphiné, no stress on the shoulders. He's going to be wanting to use this for some good training and come into the Tour de France and be ready to go. But of course, we know with Tadej Pogačar that he always wants to win every race he enters. So the next 2 riders on the first page that he has to battle with, Jonas Vingegaard is showing up, and Remco Evenepoel is back to racing again here on June 8th. So when we look at those 3 riders and we look at the course, the first 3 stages being flat, specifically the first 2 is going to be set up for the sprinters. So we see Johnny Milan from Lidl-Trek. This is a good 2 stages here for Johnny Milan to focus on. Possibly stage 3, but there's a bit of a lump there at the finish before we go into the final. So can Johnny Milan get over the steep little bump at the finish? Questionable. But when we look at the other sprinters, Pascal Ackermann is here. And of course, UnoX have Søren Varnskov on the list. Keep in mind, the list is not full, so maybe some more sprinters or some more GC guys might show up here before it's all said and done and Sunday's race starts early on the 8th of June. But at this moment, we're looking at about 3 top sprinters with Pascal Ackermann, Søren Varnskov, and Johnny Milan here battling on stages 1 and 2. And then, of course, stage 3 looks like an ideal stage if Matthew van der Poel has some form back in his legs after crashing and breaking his wrist at the mountain bike events just weeks before now. Supposedly, he was training shortly after that crash and doing 6-hour training rides. So hopefully he's kept that form going good from the spring races and now comes in here to Dauphiné and puts on a show here on stage 3. After stage 3, when we get into stage 4, it's a 17.4 kilometer time trial with a 1.8 kilometer at 7.5%, 8.5% if I remember correctly, in the middle of the individual time trial, where that's going to have some kind of effect to decide who's going to win that day. And you know Remco Evenepoel, the time trial specialist, is going to want to shine brightly there because his spring season did not go quite as planned. It started off fantastic at Brabantse, where he won against Wout van Aert to win his first race of the 25 season. Looked like it was going even better at Amstel Gold when he bridged across the gap with Skilmos at Amstel to catch Tadej Pogačar and make it a 3-rider sprint that Skilmos won. And then, of course, started to fall apart at Flèche-Wallonne, fell apart dramatically at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Tour of Romandie did not go very good in the big mountains. He blew up and couldn't follow the wheels of the climbers there at Tour of Romandie, where Almeida won the general classification. And of course, you might remind me that he won the individual time trial afterwards there at Romandie on the last stage. But when you're a time trial specialist, that's what you're supposed to do. And if you're getting dropped in the big mountains and you're getting ready for the Tour de France, there's question marks over your form. So Remco Evenepoel, this race at Dauphiné should be a stage, a whole week of racing where Remco Evenepoel wants to shine and show everybody that he's on course. Everything that had problems with starting at Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he has a race. He's brought the form back up. He's ready to go here at Dauphiné. They do, all of the riders have 3 weeks after Dauphiné finishes before the Tour de France. So it's not a catastrophic nightmare if you're not good at Dauphiné, but you certainly want to be becoming good if you haven't raced in a long time. So when we look at Jonas Vingegaard, where the last race he did was Paris-Nice. Stage 4, he was solo going up the climb and then got caught by Almeida, the Portuguese rider from UAE Team Emirates, who went on to win that stage. But Jonas Vingegaard, of course, dropped out of Paris-Nice the next day when he crashed and had a concussion. So the rider from Denmark riding for Visma Lease bike has not raced since Paris-Nice. You know right now Jonas Vingegaard is 100% motivated for Dauphiné, and you know he's going to be motivated to continue that form into the 3 weeks before the Tour de France starts. And this is where Jonas Vingegaard really is going to want to start his comeback 25 season. He won at Algarve, but he did not win solo up any of the climbs. He got caught in Algarve too when he lost the stage to UAE Team Emirates, so he didn't win an individual road stage, but he did win the individual time trial on the final stage of Algarve to wrap up the general classification. It looked like a stellar start of the 25 season for Jonas Vingegaard, but then when you go into Paris-Nice and you factor in that he lost the mountain summit climb to UAE Team Emirates and then crashed, got a concussion, dropped out of Paris-Nice. Now, all of a sudden, Dauphiné starts looking a little bit more important for Jonas Vingegaard. And remember, Jonas Vingegaard here at Dauphiné has normally shined throughout his career when he's racing here. And you don't have to go too far back to remember the times when he was racing and bringing Primož Roglič all the way to the finishing stages where they finished 1 and 2 with Jonas Vingegaard winning the final stage and taking second on the general classification to his teammate at the time, Primož Roglič, and then later, of course, going into the Tour de France and putting on a show. So when we start looking at the stages, the 8 stages here at Dauphiné, keep in mind the first 2 are not so important. The third, you start seeing a little bit more where the form is with the climb at the finish of the stage, but it's a small one. Should still be one for the sprinters like Mathieu van der Poel if he's on form. The individual time trial, stage 4, is where we're going to see the 3 GC guys battle against each other. When we start looking outside of those 3 guys that I've already mentioned, of course, there's Enric Mas. Skilmos is here in the race. Lenny Martinez should certainly put on a show for one of the stage summit finishes in the last 3 days here of Dauphiné. So look forward to seeing Lenny Martinez continue his 25 remarkable start of the season here in 2025. And then when we look at Carlos Rodriguez from Team Ineos, his beginning of the season here in 25 has been kind of quiet too. So the Ineos rider should be wanting to put on some kind of display in the last 3 mountain stages here at Dauphiné to show that he's getting ready and sharper for the Tour de France in 2025. Now, let's go back and look a little bit at the teams that are backing up the 3 favorites when we're talking UAE team members Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard, and Remco Evenepoel from Soudal Quick-Step. Because when we look at UAE team members, we see, of course, Domen Novak, Jonathan Narvaez. The Solarism is in the race. And then their next climber outside of the Solarism will be Sivakov. Sivakov should be the #1 super domestique for Tadej Pogačar. And the only questions I have when we start looking at those 4 riders, Sivakov has shown that he can have some bad days. Soler, he shows that, of course, he can be really good at moments and then out of the picture at others. Jonathan Narvaez is not the purest of climbers, and Domen Novak is kind of a little bit more questionable with the kind of form of Soler, where sometimes those 2 riders could be very, very strong, sometimes not. But if Sivakov's not on his best form, that means Tadej Pogačar in the last 3 summit climb stages, the last stage summits with 5 kilometers to go, but I'll still call it a summit stage with the last 3 because it's so close to the finish. But Tadej Pogačar could be isolated, especially when we're looking at the penultimate stage 7, where the riders have to go up Col de Madeleine and they have to go up Col de la Croix-Fer. So 2 famous climbs on stage 7, followed by a summit finish after those 2 climbs. And when you're talking about 22 plus kilometers long, if Tadej Pogačar was to win the individual time trial on stage 4, you have to start looking at a super domestique. So if Sivakov, his #1 super domestique here for UAE Team Emirates, if he's not on his best form and Soler's not on extremely good form, you could see Tadej Pogačar possibly isolated on that penultimate stage 7 here at Dauphiné, because you know for sure Visma Lease bike are going to want to light that stage up if Jonas Vingegaard has not won the individual time trial on stage 4. So we know for sure when you go into stages 6 and 7, that's Soudal Quick-Step, and especially Visma Lease bike, if they don't have the jersey already after the individual time trial, that penultimate stage is going to be incredibly fast when you're going Col de Madeleine and Col de Coiffeur. So Tadej Pogačar, Super Domestiques, might be isolated going over to Col de Coiffeur. Visma Lease bike are really drilling it, because when we go over to that team, their whole list is not there. But we know from the list that is there with the 5 riders listed that Sepp Kuss is coming, and of course Jorgensen is coming. Jorgensen has shown since he joined Visma Lease bike that his form is consistently good and capable of riding with the best riders in the world. And we only have to go back to last season in 2024 at Dauphiné, where he finished 2nd overall and dropped Primoz Roglic on the last mountain stage. So Jonas Vingegaard and Jorgensen, they have some super climbing there, backed up with Sepp Kuss if he's arrived with his best form. But you have to ask yourself about the American Flying Eagle, Sepp Kuss. Where is his level at? We haven't seen his level in the big mountains very high or even near high since, of course, the Vuelta a España in 2023. But to that effect, he has had COVID last season, so he's had plenty of legitimate reasons why the American rider has not been on good form. But even when we look at 2025, the American rider Sepp Kuss has not come into the 25 season hot and heavy in terms of his climbing. So here at Dauphiné, this is a rider you certainly want to pay attention to, especially if you're a fan of the American rider, because without riding spectacular throughout the 25 season so far, and being on Team Visma Lease bike and starting here at Dauphiné, if he's still not climbing here this late into the 25 season, you have to start asking yourself, with only 3 weeks left to the 25 Tour de France, would Sepp Kuss make the Tour de France roster if he was still climbing bad here at Dauphiné? So this is a crucial moment here in June, starting June 8th and finishing on the 15th, for the American rider to bring his form back to the stardom that we saw at the 23 Vuelta a España, where he won the general classification. And that same season did the Giro, did the Tour, and did the Vuelta, where then Jumbo-Visma, now Visma Lease bike, won all 3 Grand Tours. So this race is incredibly crucial for Sepp Kuss to shine, at least be up there riding in the top 10 riders when we're going into the last 3 mountain stages, and capable of helping Jonas Vingegaard or Jorgensen, or possibly even riding for himself for a stage victory on the last 3 stages of Dauphiné. Those are interesting storylines to keep an eye on. And then when we go over and look at Soudal Quick-Step, well, Remco Evenepoel doesn't have a huge depth of climbing talent backing him up either. So if he wins the individual time trial at stage 4, and remember, I know I said 3 riders could win. No doubt Tadej Pogačar can win the individual time trial. No doubt Remco Evenepoel could win the individual time trial. And no doubt Jonas Vingegaard could come with some spectacular form and win the individual time trial. So either one of those 3 teams could be wearing the race leader's jersey when we go into the last mountain stages here at Dauphiné. So Soudal Quick-Step, when you look at his team, you have to look behind the race leader and ask yourself how much depth is backing up the Belgian rider from Soudal Quick-Step. Well, Max Schachmann has shown some of his best form in the last 2, if not 3 seasons of his career. The last one's being, of course, when he won Paris-Nice two years back-to-back. But since then, his climbing legs have not been spectacular. But this year in 2025, he did climb and ride exceptionally well at the Basque Country. So if Max Schachmann's form can start to come back up to his best climbing legs, then Remco Evenepoel could have the climber there in Max Schachmann. Per Pentre, the French rider that joined from AG2R, that went over to Soudal Quick-Step. He's going to play an important role at Soudal Quick-Step of backing up Remco Evenepoel if he is in the race leader's jersey. And then when we look at their next climber, we're talking about Vervaeke. And sometimes Louis Vervaeke climbs good, sometimes not so good. So I think he's really left with just the 2 super climbers of Max Schachmann and Per Pentre, and I called them super climbers because that's what they'll have to be. And if they're not super climbers, then you know Remco Evenepoel will be solo, especially on that stage 7 after the Col de Madeleine and the Col de Coiffeur. So we have some exciting races to keep an eye out for, exciting stages, at Dauphiné to keep an eye out for. And I'll remind you guys at this moment, because of the Cascade Cycling Classic starting on June 14th and racing throughout that whole Saturday, I might not be able to do a butterfly effect up the Col de Madeleine and the Col de la Coiffure, but if I can find some time, maybe I'll do a short clip on what I thought of the stage. But it could be I don't have time to cover that stage, but I'll cover all the other stages from 1 through 6, and then cover stage 8, of course, on the butterfly effect, and I'll see what I could do for that Saturday magnificent stage 7 up Col de la Coiffure and Col de Madeleine, because I certainly want to be part of that action when we're talking about the butterfly effect. So like and subscribe. We got a fantastic race starting here June 8th, this Sunday for Dauphiné. I'll see you guys for the butterfly effect on Monday, but of course, I'll find something else to bring you in videos for Beyond the Coverage before Sunday's race starts. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.